Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Tonight we have the Honorable Frank Sapareto from way down south in Derry. How'd you make it over the border into Manchester and stuff?
Well,
you okay?
the border
Do you
keeps
get,
creeping up from Mass, but I don't think it's still in between Manchester and Derry, but it's getting close.
It is. It's getting pretty
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
They're
if they
taking
could-
over.
If they could move the sales tax north, I'm sure that the Mass would do that.
Yeah.
Yep, but I'm glad you're still in there, braving the storm, being part of the few or the brave.
The few, the proud, the brain dead.
Well, you have to work with that up there.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm one of the brain dead. No, I just it's entertaining. It's like today's Mueller report interviews.
Oh, you mean the fifth bite at the apple? I think they're chomping on the core right
Yeah,
now.
they're chomping on the core. It's really, really funny because I saw a meme on Facebook that pretty much covered it, but they had nothing on. I mean, the whole thing at the beginning of this, if we remember correctly, the Democrats and the media were saying that they believed that Russia interfered with our election and that Trump was part of that interference.
Right. The
They
instructions were
worked in cahoots
to investigate collusion, possible collusion.
possible conclusion. That was the crux to the investigation. They did find some Russian interference in the election, but what they found out was that the Russians trashed Clinton and they trashed Trump. It was like it was more of a sweeping attempt to try to cause division and stuff like that. So
And I wonder how that was done. Could that have done through mass media? Could it
Yeah,
have been
like
misinformation done through
Facebook.
mainstream media? Maybe.
Yeah.
Could it have been? It couldn't be anything like maybe a million illegal. Bless you. A million. Double that.
I might be dead.
I mean, compared to illegal immigrants that come in that may have affected the elections, I think
Right.
it's minor. I mean, we of course are on the tip of the iceberg, but today's report, Mueller report, pretty much showed how desperate. You know, they're beating more than beating a dead horse.
What I'm trying to point out is, after 2 years of investigation, they found out pretty conclusively that Trump and the Russians did not work together.
Let's again.
Sorry. The only thing they are confused about is whether or not Trump tried to obstruct justice.
Of course, it generally needs to be an underlying crime, and of course, since there isn't one, how could you obstruct justice when there's no underlying crime?
Well, that was what I was going to tell you.
But here's the big thing: since when, Gary, do you or I or anyone else have to prove exoneration? We have to be exonerated.
Right.
In order to not be charged. I mean, you want to take our entire, bless you too, you want to take the entire legal system and flip it upside down so that now you must prove your innocence. And you know, I hear the line of the Democrats all the time, no one is above the law. That's true, but no one is beneath the law as well. They forget to add that to the other end of it. And that's really what you're seeing here, is they're trying to apply a different set of standards where we must prove our innocence or be exonerated before. And it's just it's a circus.
Well, the meme that was on, or the post that was on Facebook said that that after a 2.5 year investigation, we were absolutely convinced that President Trump did not steal any horses, but there's more than enough evidence to convict him that he resisted being hung. Right?
It's true.
That's pretty much it.
Sure. It's true. And he reacted the way anybody else who was falsely accused would react. Although he didn't do anything. If you watch most of the testimony, the Democrats, a lot of their attack and argument was that, he tried to prevent Mueller from doing his job. And they talked about firing him, and he mentioned it, and they brought up Corey Lewandowski's name over and over, saying I instructed them to fire him. But he was never fired. And it was, I think it was the Republican from Texas that said, well, what was the end result? Was he ever fired? Were you ever fired? No. What are we discussing here? Private conversations the president has with his independent counsel. I mean, if that's the way things are going to be, the country's gone. That means the president can't even speak with
talk openly with anybody
with his private
because
counsel now. I mean, think about what they're doing when they're carrying this hatred of our president to this level right now, that they're willing to destroy the country.
Well, the thing is also trying to get that news out. Like, it's like getting whiplash. Like I listened to Rush Limbaugh and Hannity, right? Mm-hmm. And I was switching back between that and National Propaganda Radio, It's like freaking whiplash because National Propaganda Radio, they were interviewing Nadler, the head of the Judiciary Democrat, and he was talking about really serious how we really need to get to the bottom of this and we're really not done yet and all this other stuff. And they were okay with that, right? They just went along with whatever he said, right? Then they had what's his Trump's one of his Jay Sekulow, Trump's attorney on, and they're like drilling him. They're drilling him like trying to nail him. And it's like complete different opposite reactions.
That's why when they do it in their fund drive and they say if you really want impartial and proper news, my God, why can't they be honest anymore? And they wonder why they don't get federal they have to worry about federal funding or why the state won't fund them.
They're so far to the left. Well, the thing is,
I like a lot of people that work there. I just wish that they were honest with the public.
No, they're not honest at all. I mean, because they said, well, if because Nadler said something about that if this was a real investigation, Trump would have been interviewed. Mm-hmm. And then they went after what's his name again? Who's the lawyer for Trump? Sekulow. Said, well, if they really are trying to arrive at the truth, why didn't Trump admit to concede to an interview?
Why should he have to?
Why should he have to? But if anybody's watched these hearings, they realize what the FBI does is they'll say, right. Frank, last Saturday it was nice and sunny yesterday when you went out to eat at Margarita's. And you go, yeah, I guess it was. Now they got you for lying because it was raining out because you forgot.
Right. Most of them are administrative infractions that are really designed that are really a catch-22.
They're they lie about a situation that they know the answer to.
That's right.
Because they've investigated.
Then they use that to leverage.
Then they use that as a lie because you now lied to a federal agent, which is a felony in and of itself.
Right. Now you can pressure it.
And now you're
cycle. This is what happened. We forget what happened to McCarthyism in those days. Very similar, and I really want to look more into how we're able to overcome that and get through McCarthyism and put Eugene McCarthy in his place. Because the same thing is happening right now.
Yep.
And the people who have this blinded hatred of the president, can't see this. And if they could only step back as a third party and look at it, you could see what's doing, how history is repeating itself in that regard. Today, for example, we heard Mueller perjure himself. His May 29th joint statement with the Department of Justice said specifically that it was not because they did not charge him, not because he was the president, because they couldn't charge the sitting president. That wasn't the reason why. And he said that in a joint statement with Bill Barr.
Right.
Today, we heard in testimony just the opposite, which what I think that the Democrats in that committee were trying to get him to say, and he perjured himself by saying that and repeating it. I saw he made a correction later on afterwards. He tried to correct it because he realized that he perjured himself. But what it showed was that he had a severe, not just a misunderstanding, but an unfamiliarity with his own report. They would cite out sections, especially Jim Jordan would say, ask him questions, and he'd say, I declined to comment on that. Well, you did. I'm reading it right out of what you reported. Don't you recall that? And it wasn't that it happened occasionally. It happened frequently during that, in some of the others. He just did not recall the thing, so it shows that he wasn't writing most of that report. This was done by other people that work with him, probably with similar views like McCabe and some of the others that were very slanted.
Well, yeah. Well, the head guy in charge, which obviously wasn't Mueller, wasn't he the guy that was at Hillary Clinton's?
The ties are all there, and you can see in the emails.
When she had the thing down in New York where she was the Victory Party, I think he was there, and the other ones were like donors and stuff like that. So they were all Democratic donors or people affiliated with Hillary Clinton were in charge of this whole investigation. If they can't find anything. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to. I
think what we're going to see, Gary, is that very shortly there's going to be a flipping. There's going to be Bill Barr's investigation into the Pfizer origination, and finally, and one of the most pointed question was why didn't Mueller charge the man who started? I think of his name off the top of my head. 3 times they found that he lied. They caught him 3 times he lied. They never charged him. The one who started the entire investigation, I forget when they were going to investigate began, and the person who started that by saying, yes, he did tell the Russians, does have information for the Russians, he was never charged. And Mueller couldn't answer it, couldn't answer the question of why he wasn't charged.
Mueller didn't seem to be actually informed as to the entire Russian connection to Fusion GPS and the Steele document or anything else.
No, and he won't go into any
He
of
won't
that.
go and
Because
took any
They're
questions.
investigating that right now, and hopefully that's going to come out, and I hope it's timely when the election happens, so that the public's going to be able to see what all of this charade's been about.
Yeah, because it seems like basically the Democrats put Mueller in charge because A, he's on paper a Republican, had impeccable credentials, and he was just a figurehead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he just sat there and said, yeah, okay, and I don't think he has a real grasp of what the hell went on.
Nope, and nor does he. I don't think he has a stomach for what's happening right now either.
Yeah.
So,
So
I think I said the worm is going to keep turning. But, I mean, there's no other dead horse to beat after this. I'm wondering what the Democrats are going to look for now after Mueller's already testified. Are they going to try another impeachment vote again? Quite a ways to go. They need more than 59 votes.
They only got 59 votes the other day.
I
thought it was like 90 to 2.
It was some small number. It went way off the mark.
Yeah.
Even worse than what you guys are dealing with at the State House on the other side.
I know.
Which I'm sorry for all the things you've had to deal with.
Yeah. You must be grateful you didn't get in this time.
I remember what it was like last time, and actually I can say I'm really not regretting it. Not at all. You know, I remember going up there and spending so much time and devoting a lot of time, and it was useless. No matter whether I went up there, whether I didn't go, whether I spoke, whether I didn't, whether I sponsored legislation, didn't, opposed it, would have made no difference, right along party lines, and I'm sure you're dealing with that right now.
Yeah, we are dealing with that. But the difference is this time we have a Republican in the corner office.
I wish he could have hung on the death penalty issue, but and I'm hoping that they're not going. As a result, of course, we're going to lose more lives. Those killers who say they're going to kill again, of course, will. But at least they can feel good about saving the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my opinion. I've always had three. When I voted on the death penalty, I always had three circumstances in order for the death penalty to apply. One is it absolutely had to be the person, no question about it.
Right.
Not like that issue in Epping where about 15 years ago they killed the clerk and they don't know which one.
Right.
Only you have to know who it is. Two, they had to intend to take life. It couldn't have been just inadvertently, or they had to intend to take that life. And third,
yeah, but I thought in the case in Manchester, the guy who just turned around and was shooting while he was driving away on a bicycle or something.
Well, if it was random shooting, I wouldn't apply the death penalty there. I'd apply a death penalty.
That's what I'm understanding. I didn't really read the report.
I would take it as someone who absolutely, without question, intends to take a life.
Yeah.
And then most importantly is the person rehabilitative. Not like the people on death row you see in Texas and in Illinois, where they've completely turned their lives around for 18 years and saved many other lives,
right.
And they're still put to death. These are people who say they're going to kill, and they're going to kill again. And a perfect example of that was that misguided man from Massachusetts that would kill the two brothers up in that Conway store about maybe 8 years ago. The two brothers who tried to stop the robbery, and they were killed. They gave him life in prison. He said he was going to kill again. They gave him life in prison instead of the death penalty. He went down to a prison in Florida and killed two people down there.
In prison.
In prison, while in prison. Because it is impossible to keep someone, a killer like that, away from contact with any other human for the remainder of his lifetime. It does not happen. And they tell you they're going to kill again, and then when they do, and if you're a legislator and you allow that to happen, that blood is on their hands.
Right.
Thankful it's not on mine.
Yeah, it's on mine.
Well, I don't know which side you vote on that, Gary.
No,
but that was the only thing I could see. If they could guarantee me that someone could never kill again who says they're going to kill, like Michael Edison.
I get it.
There's no respect, no respect for human life.
I'll tell you.
And they'll kill again.
Okay.
They will.
Okay, I'll tell you why I voted for the repeal. And I agree with you 100%. As a Christian, I'm totally okay with taking somebody's life for, like you said, deliberately like shooting a cop like that. If he knew exactly what he was shooting at, he pointed the gun at the cop and tries to take his life, yes, agreed. However, the problem is that I've dealt with the Attorney General so many times in my position in the Judiciary Committee and prior to that I don't trust him. I really don't trust the Attorney General. In our system too. Wicked bad. And it's a constant reframe. It doesn't even matter which Attorney General it is. They're pretty much like these invertebrates that.
Well, remember, Gary, we've only committed one to death penalty since 1939.
Right, I get that.
I mean, it's not like it's abused.
Yeah, no, but that's the problem. Is you have
Illinois and Texas, their laws, I would agree.
But anyway, the thing is, Attorney General's office. We had a petition warrant article in town.
Mm-hmm.
The police chief did a background check on the people that did a petition warrant article.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
It's a bunch of crimes right there. A bunch of violations of people's civil liberties. 3 people from the town of Ware went to the Attorney General and filed a complaint, and the Attorney General did 0. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Last year, a simple one was the Marcy's Law.
Yep.
The Attorney General came up supporting a Marcy's Law. Marcy's Law was a complete perversion of I can't say it's
we were on the same committee. We were in the joint committee for
right,
that.
we're on the joint committee. And that was the Attorney General that was advocating for something that perverted the Constitution. So his interest wasn't geared towards doing the right thing and doing what is best for the people. It was geared toward doing what's best for he and his department.
Believe me, I agree with you, Gary. I saw firsthand the flaws in our judicial system.
And so I've
always prevail.
I've seen that constant during the what was the banking one that begins with an F?
Fairbanks?
No. The one where the guy who was a real estate guy, and he had all these people invest in his. You know what I mean?
Yeah, up in Lakes Region, Laconia, isn't it? Yeah.
And I watched somebody from the Attorney General's office come to those hearings when those people had obviously been scammed, and said, well, the Attorney General's office did everything that it was supposed to do to investigate that.
Yep.
We did.
That was investigating the Bureau of Securities regulation.
Right.
Yep.
They said we did everything we're supposed to do. Then maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, they said, but if we had more money, we could have done more. Well, either you did everything you're supposed to do, or you needed money to get that done. Those two are completely opposite positions. So one of those is a lie.
I know I agree with you, obviously.
I'm just saying the Attorney General's office in all the almost 20 years I've been going to Concord has been so lacking in credibility that I don't think
they're misapplying the laws.
They misapplied the law.
Right.
I'll give you another example.
I agree.
Judiciary Committee, we keep getting this stuff about the Lorry list, and for the people in the audience, the Lorry list. It is a list of things of police officers
with complaints against them have been accused of or are actually proven to have perjured themselves or lied under oath.
Yeah, so you have a list of. Well, the fact of the matter is, if the Attorney General's office was doing its job, there would be no Lorry's list.
Well, you may recall 4 years ago I put in a bill 3 years ago I put a bill in to say that the Lorry's list should be made public, and if you're on the Lorry's list or you've been convicted of perjury in this state as a law enforcement officer or you lied under oath, you can no longer work in law enforcement in this state, and that bill was killed.
Right, but the reason is because the Lorry list was a list of cops that had done something wrong, not necessarily criminal.
Oh, for years we were told there was no such thing.
Right. But the problem is if Frank gets arrested by a cop and you just committed murder again. What's he, a third time? So he commits murder. He goes to court, and the arresting officer had already perjured himself before. The AG looks at the list and sees that cop's not on it. Well, you know why he's not on it? Because nobody in his chief didn't do anything about it, so it wasn't put on the list.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is, the Attorney General office is responsible for giving your attorney, your defense attorney, any evidence that would help your exculpatory evidence, any evidence that would help your case. But because the Attorney General didn't go through the files of that particular officer, they didn't know because it wasn't on the list.
Yep.
So there's probably a boatload of exculpatory evidence that hasn't been handed down because they're too damn lazy.
I agree with you. There's problems along the Attorney General's office. There's also problems along in the system as well, because we know that, for example, the courts don't do jury nullification. Many of them provide the Wentworth instruction instead of jury nullification.
Yep, that's
it's
the other
always
thing.
been an instruction for them. So I know there are those problems. They do exist. But if we're talking about the principle, though, of the death penalty, and just under those circumstances, it's difficult to deter. And if there's absolutely no question that they can be applied, if the law is written correctly, that there's absolutely no question, without any doubt, that this person has committed that crime, has committed that murder, and that they intended to take that murder, it was obvious and evident that they did that, under those circumstances with them, that rest is behavioral. So, I mean, under those terms,
Not
and it can
necessarily.
be done.
If you've got an attorney general that is lacking in credibility, is it possible that an attorney general would prosecute somebody for murder one?
It's hard to avoid on a
Just-
high-profile case.
Not necessarily.
Name me one. How about Michael Addison, for example?
Okay.
I think it was properly applied. And here's
I don't
someone that
know.
we know did it.
We know
he
did it. Yeah.
We know he intended to take a life. It was right in his face. We know he meant to shoot the officer.
Well, that's
Officer
what I
Briggs.
don't know. I don't know that that's true.
Well, it's kind of hard to avoid that when they're that close. He's got the gun pointed at him. And he pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing, if you talk to him, he has no respect for human life. He's going
Right.
to kill again. He said he's going to kill again.
Yeah.
That's a killer. And when he does kill again, I don't want that blood on my hands.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We know it's going to happen. He's told us, and I don't want. I mean, that's.
I'm just
that's
saying.
enough.
I'm
That's
just,
enough. If you want to save lives, if that's your objective, then it's a clear path.
no, my objective is to do the right thing regardless. So, in other words, to me, if the Attorney General's office had been credible, everybody makes mistakes, but the mistakes they've made are.
Well, let's use that example, since it's the only one we have since 1939.
I don't know enough about it to argue with it.
I mean, I went to my committee. That was because we discussed
Okay.
it through my committee.
All right.
Because criminal justice and you're a judiciary.
Right. But
But philosophically, that's the main reasons. And for years, the Cardinal's office would contact us, I remember years ago, and I'd ask the same question. If someone says they're going to kill again and I let them, whose fault is that? Who's to blame?
right.
So that's kind of clear cut. I'd rather talk about immigration.
Oh,
Well, you got into part of it when you talk about affecting the elections. I look at what they're talking about, Russian collusion, and I look at all the people coming across the border at 1 million a year, illegal or undocumented, and then I wonder, which is going to have a bigger impact on the elections?
I know. The fact that you've got, well, you had a couple of variables in California. Many years ago, the governor I think it was the governor, maybe, I'm sure it was with the legislative approval, changed the law so illegal immigrants could get licenses, right?
Yeah.
And before, I think it was the 2016 election, I remember distinctly it was on a Spanish station asking President Obama about people voting illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And he just basically said, well, it would be illegal, but I'm not sure anybody ever checks into it. Right?
Well,
so what does that mean?
That means that Bill Gardner's head would roll.
Right?
Because he said, well, let's find out. And Bill does an excellent job.
Bill does. But my thing is if you've got millions of voters in California who got their driver's license, filed to vote, never questioned, how many votes in California went to Hillary Clinton? I mean, did she actually really win the popular vote?
Well, popular vote, if you want, this is what I don't think people really realize, is that it's a popular vote. If that would mean that from now on, the future of the country would be solely determined by New York and California.
Florida and Texas.
Even more California. It'd
Yeah.
be hard to overcome the
yeah.
votes between New York and California.
Yes.
And those votes would
What
supersede
percentage of
almost
the
all of them.
population is that, you think?
Well, you're over 55%.
Really?
Yeah.
Those two states?
Those urban areas between them. So, I don't agree with that. There's a reason why the Senate is made up from 2 senators of each state.
Yeah.
For equal representation. And why that we don't live in a democracy. It's not. We live in a republic.
Right.
And that's and we're not kids are not being taught that. I think I mentioned this too. I won't name the school where I went to, but I had these classrooms where I walked into the students and I said to them, how many of you believe that hate speech is prohibited by the Constitution? And over half of these kids raised their hands.
Really?
And I pointed to the teachers. I said, shame on you. Shame on you. You're not being taught correctly. And I read them the First Amendment. And they tried to say well, that's not the First Amendment.
They said that?
Word for word, that was the First Amendment, because they said it means just the opposite. They realized that why weren't those kids taught that?
What school was it?
No, I'm not. I'm going to. Last time I got criticized for saying it, so I'm not going to say. But it's not the way it should. That we're not teaching our kids. They're not understanding what the Constitution means. And of course now the cry from the other side always is we're all racist.
I know.
Everybody, we're all racist.
Everybody's racist.
I saw Morgan Freeman. I think is probably the smartest racist I've ever heard. And he just said, why do we keep talking about people in black and white terms or other terms? Why can't we just talk about Americans or this? Why show the division? Why is because mainstream media sows that division, and some people really want to exploit that, and that's where you get the hatred you've got today.
I know. Well, I think that's actually kind of part of the problem. Is like right now you've had, President Trump basically told the four horsemen of the apocalypse to, if you don't like it, take a hike.
Yeah.
You don't let the door hit you on the way up.
They try to make it as an ethnic. It had nothing to do with that. Their anti-American statements are what define their position, and that was his criticism. To make it otherwise is somebody else is being disingenuous, and reporting it that way is completely disingenuous and continued fake news.
That was one of the things I heard the other day. I just switched on national propaganda radio. I can usually only take for about 3 minutes, and it was last Saturday or Sunday, during the New Yorker report or something they do, and they just said, as a matter of fact, the president's racist. Like it's a truth. I'll give you something that happened at the State House. I'll tell you something that happened.
With Representative Burt.
No, something that happened to me at the State House in 2007. I probably shouldn't admit this on TV, but I'll do it anyway. I'm not that smart. So I was new to the Science and Tech Committee. And when you meet new legislators, you try to be friendly, say, how are you doing, all this stuff. Sorry, my nose is running. I'm wiping my nose. If you don't like it, turn away, I guess. So I met this lady, and I'm talking to her, and she said, well, I said I was from where? And she says, why? We almost moved there. And I said, well, you never would have got elected. So it's probably a good thing you moved to whatever town it was. And she got pissed. She was like really mad at me, right? And I didn't understand why. And I was saying that because she's a Democrat.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know, a +3 or 4 easy Republican district. And she would have been new. And people tend to vote for people that have lived there for a while, right? So she got 2 huge strikes against her. So I didn't think the odds of her winning would have been slim to none.
Don't tell me she blamed it because of her gender.
Nope. Okay. No. It was about 2 hours after that because I walked away confused. And about 2 hours after that, I said, oh, maybe she thought I said that because she's black. But that never even...
entered your mind.
That was never even part of my equation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that statement could easily be perceived as racist. Yeah. But it was like never even. It's
because we've gotten
dense,
right? Because we're being told by that far left that accusations are real.
Yeah.
I think it was just last week we had another accuser of Kavanaugh's admitted to her falsehood that she was falsely accused him. I think that was in the Washington Post.
I thought all of them had basically. The only one is Blasey Ford that hasn't conceded.
I think
right?
This one was. I didn't finish the whole article, but I mean the point is that these accusations are carried out just to promote some point of view without any factual.
Well, they have passion for a view, and they're willing to stop at nothing to
fit the facts to fit their fit the facts to their
I
narrative.
I thought the Senate was going to, because there was that moron who was working with the what was the crazed lawyer that was attacked? Avenatti.
Mm-hmm.
The lady that was working with him saying that he did
Stormy Daniels.
Was it Stormy Daniels?
Yep.
That
was her attorney before she fired him and he stole from her, and that's
but that's different though. There was a woman that was accusing Kavanaugh of things, of like these, I forget what it was. It's really horrible stuff. But then after this all kind of blew over, she said she misspoke, and I thought the Senate was going to prosecute her.
There was discussion of that, but they'll never.
They have to.
They didn't. Yeah.
Because that's what happens. That's why there's rogue cops, and that's why there's people that lie like that, because nobody's ever prosecuted for it.
Yep. Well, they've got to stop this. Either that, and the public has to stop listening to these far left accusers. I haven't heard anybody in the far right take the position that well, if someone's accused, they're automatically guilty. We have a few, maybe
it happens once in a while,
but not as a main theme for it. And one of the things I thought, I was at the Bill O'Brien Senate kickoff yesterday, and one of the things I was unaware of, that the Business Industry Association, as they looked at the votes for the U.S. Senate, that Senator Shaheen voted against, and she's the one that say we all got to work together all the time.
Yeah.
Voted against the president, not 60%, not 70, not 80, not even 90%, not even 99% of the time, but 100% of the time.
100% of the
100%
time.
100% of the
There was nothing
time. Everything, all our economic policies, the tax reductions, the treaty, everything to do with the treaty of NATO, North Korea, anything that he's proposed, he's been on. She has voted against everything that he's done, 100%. New Hampshire is one of the largest impediments to the progress of this country right now as a result of our elections with our 2 U.S. senators. If we don't replace them, the country needs our help.
Well, I told on the show back after the Mueller report first came out, I think it was the following week, I says, well, we've had two and a half years of constant refrain on the from the left. Mm-hmm. That the president colluded with the Russians. That is now absolutely disproven. There's just no way that ever happened.
But we'll waste time, effort, and energy. We'll show our enemies our weaknesses too by doing that.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that. But I said, so the 2018 election was severely influenced by the belief by a good percentage of the population that Trump had colluded with the Russians. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the 2018 election, people were elected under false pretexts. So therefore, I'm presuming Ray Buckley is going to ask for a new election so people can now vote on it fairly.
Yeah, come on, we don't know Ray Buckley is. It's just a joke. There are some people who tell the truth and some people who don't, some who stretch it. I can't think of any less credible person in my lifetime than Ray Buckley. But anyway, it gets to the point of absurdity. Any third party person who's stepping back and looking at some of the things happening would say, okay, enough's enough. And we have to start looking at what the president does. People forget. Of course, Trump is imperfect. He's very imperfect, but he's an imperfect person who's there at the right time. Patton was an example of that.
Oh, right yeah.
Now, Patton's personality was vulgar, crude, rude, if it's certain by every stretch of the imagination, much worse than President Trump's. But he was the right man at the right time, and you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking probably if he didn't exist.
Yeah.
Same thing for Winston Churchill. Yeah, he saved the world basically, but he would be drunk and drink brandy and walk around naked. But he got the job done. He brought the U.S. into the war at the time when Congress called it Roosevelt's War.
Right.
But he understood the importance of Lend-Lease. So history always gets repeated, and we forget these things. We don't teach them to our children. We don't teach them even to our legislators.
Well, I think there's, and it's a big, huge move right now to conflate a person's personal life with what they've done or said, which aren't, like every human. Those aren't always the same. Somebody can speak very cool things, but in their personal life be pretty messed up. Like like Winston Churchill, like you're saying, the guy was drank way too much But if it wasn't for him, we might be speaking German right now.
Forget what was happening. Chamberlain before that was an appeaser.
Yeah.
And he was happy when Hitler took over invaded the Sudetenland. He was willing to appease him, let him have it. And finally it took the march across Poland and to finally say, well,
wait a second.
Let's start to worry about it. And realize that Neville Chamberlain's strategic patience. Gee, where do we see that happen?
Yeah.
It was not the philosophy that was going to save the world. And then they realized it, and luckily not too late.
But it's like the thing is, what I like to focus on is what they've done.
Right.
Like for instance, Martin Luther King, obviously another imperfect human, and I've never looked into it, but my understanding is he had multiple affairs with women outside of marriage.
That was in the Kennedy era, when times when things like that weren't discussed among the press.
Right. But the thing is, what he said was, I look forward to a time when my children will be judged by the strength of their character and not the color of their skin.
Exactly.
That statement is absolute truth, right? Mm-hmm. It really doesn't matter who he was specifically, because the truth is the truth, and it doesn't matter who says it.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with right now. What's his face? The crappy quarterback, Kaepernick, said that he wouldn't wear. He doesn't think they should be producing shoes with Betsy Ross's.
No, but he follows Islam, which promotes, which is
He does.
Yeah. So go figure.
Yeah. But anyway, so he is trashing. Because at first I thought he had something against Betsy Ross, so I had to research that first and found out Betsy Ross never did anything to anybody that I could find out.
No.
She didn't have slaves. She was actually an abolitionist.
That was a symbol of freedom, and
Right.
to turn that around because of your ignorance of history is comical. And that people would listen and believe this, and a company like that would a board of directors would follow that. I mean, how come Adidas is not a business?
Well, it's Nike for one thing.
I'm sorry, my apologies, Nike. Why aren't they out of?
That's why. Now you
That's
know why.
That's right.
So anyway, so I found that was not the case. So then I looked into it further, and it was his statement was based on a article written by, gosh, my mind's not working good. Oh, what is his name?
Someone who claimed that slavery was prevalent during that time period when she did the flag.
No, it was the black guy who was a great writer.
Booker Washington.
No,
Booker T.
no, the other one.
Oh, Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass had written a thing on how horrible the colonies were for being based, or the original colonies were based on that on the backs of
Particularly
slaves and
plantations
stuff
in
like
the
that.
South where
Yeah,
they
exactly.
was labor intensive.
But it was Ted Cruz pointed out, well, if you actually read the entire thing, Frederick Douglass wasn't really trashing America. He was trashing that aspect of America,
Yep.
which I think everybody agrees was horrible.
Which was ended, and a lot of white people lost their lives to protect it.
Yeah,
It was the worst.
500,000 or something.
Yeah, it was the worst. We lost more in the Battle of Gettysburg as much as we did the entire Vietnam War. It was the most costly war in U.S. history.
But the thing is, when I was looking into it, I found out because they want to get rid of all the statues to Thomas Jefferson. And
I wonder what they can do about Stone Mountain, how they're going to get rid of that one.
well, you have to
Spend a little more than $1 million
go into that in a
one.
second. But I was looking into it, and I found out that the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, had an entire paragraph on the evils of slavery.
Yes, and that was debated in Continental Congress.
Right, and they knew they had to be unanimous, and 3 states out of the 13 wouldn't agree to that paragraph. If they had, then slavery would have been over a lot quicker.
Yep.
But they didn't, so we ended up suffering with that for.
Well, some of their comments, I forget who said it. Actually, thought that was predicted that someday one of the generations, the future, will solve that issue in the bloodshed of America.
Yeah, which is
There are
horrible.
a lot of things that were warned by it. We're also been warned. Khrushchev warned us in 1959 what was going to happen. Now he said he told everyone at the United Nations after banging his shoe that you're not going to be communists and your children won't be, but their children will probably be socialists.
Right.
And that's how we will destroy you from within. Sure enough, that's what's happening right now. Reagan said the same thing in 1986. The difference why is because we're not teaching patriotism or the value of capitalism. And you and I, when we grew up, if we weren't taught patriotism at home from our parents, we learned it from the guy down the street who was an Anzio, or the neighbor who was in the Philippines as a Marine sergeant,
Right.
like my neighbor was, who instilled upon me why our country was great and what the sacrifices
That's actually
were.
true, because there's no
They
way.
don't have that now. These kids today don't have that. They can't speak to that veteran that saw what the sacrifices were made to make us
Yeah,
great.
there's no way we would have said something crappy about the
Of course
American
not.
flag back then.
Of course not.
Not without getting your butt kicked.
Of course not. Not even, especially even after September 11th in 2001. Remember the feeling back then? But these kids weren't there then now. These are children that weren't old enough to understand that feeling of patriotism in that era or the era before. And what happened in the greatest generation is they were brought up under World War I.
Right.
Those kids, they understood the value of it and why they needed to stand up for their country. We don't have that. They're not being taught that. The schools are teaching them just the opposite of that.
Yep.
Why our country is terrible when they have no idea. I would love to have taken some of these kids, or even some people I know, to Pakistan with me to see what it's like in countries that don't have the things that we have here. I'd like to take Kaepernick with me. I'd love to have taken him to Kashmir. I'd love if he was sitting in the prisons right now and talked to Al Qaeda, who in perfect English would explain to them why they had to die. That's the type of things that people don't realize.
Yeah, the numbing down or the dumbing down of the next generation has been amazing. I mean, you had what was one of the four women of the apocalypse? I forget which one. Came out with a statement yesterday that she's, I think, introducing legislation for $20 an hour minimum wage.
That's
No, it wasn't Omar.
the foul mouth one, the one that swears all the time.
Yeah, the one who tweaked out
the
at
one
a
that was
Trump
thrown
rally.
out for craziness in the rallies, that she's out of control.
So so the thing is, if you look at the surface of that, it sounds nice. Everybody gets $20 an hour minimum wage. Yeah,
I think it's Talib. Yeah.
But if you really think about it, so the kid working at McDonald's is now getting paid $20 an hour. How much does the hamburger go up? It's got to go. It's got to double.
There is no better example, Gary.
Well, let me just make my point, because it's a little bit different than most. So everybody knows if they're going to keep those, they has to be passed down to the consumer. McDonald's is not a charity. CVS is not a charity. Dunkin' Donuts is not a charity, and Walmart is not a charity. If they have to maintain the same level of employment, they have to raise their prices so they can still be profitable, which means the people, because this Democrats are about the underprivileged, the people that will be devastated by a $20 an hour minimum wage will be the people on Social Security, because their raise didn't go up. Right. So now they're making $1,200 a month, but now their hamburgers are twice as much.
Yep.
If they go down and get toiletries, they're twice as much.
Yep.
And so it's they have no clue what they're talking about.
No.
But they offer these things $20 a month, and younger people don't think it through, and it's, oh yeah, that'd be great to be making $20 a month.
Since when does it become illegal to have a non-career job, to offer a non-career job? Why does every job you offer have to have a career wage?
Right.
People want a career wage. Don't they go to school to learn about a career?
Or a trade?
Or a trade or something? You know, what about the poor? New Hampshire is small businesses, mom and pop shops. And of course, Eugene voted against all of small business every single chance she got.
Right.
Why can't they hire the summer job? The kid who just wants a $10 an hour job for summer, just to get by. He wants to play with his friends. Doesn't want to work 40 hours a week. Wants to work part-time. You know, why can't there be like that? Why can't the market determine that? We can't have that. A perfect example, though, was what's happening now. We're going after Bernie Sanders because he's not paying his people $15 an hour.
He got
he got a real lesson in economics, which is wonderful that he learned first grade economics, and that is that if you pay people more and you only have so much money, you got to change something else. And so he's laying off the hours, laying off people, and he's realizing that doesn't always work the way you want it.
Yeah.
That's a great economic lesson for Bernie, and I really hope he learns that as he gets through the kindergarten of economics.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's the people in D.C. They live on these high horses and their high horses.
Well, he's worth millions.
He is. Yeah, I know.
He's not Pelosi rich, but he's he's up there like Schumer. Schumer's getting more, but they're all pretty well off. All the people that are fighting for the little person are pretty well off.
Yeah, it's funny.
I don't see any of them donating their salary like our president is to charitable causes.
Yeah, I know somebody posted on Facebook that Jesus Christ was all. They're basically claiming that Republicans can't be Christians because Jesus Christ was charitable. And we're not. So I just comment as Jesus Christ told you to be charitable. He didn't say the government had to be.
That's true.
Right? He did. His command is to help people and help your neighbor. But there's nothing in there about the stealing people's money and the government just redistributing.
They try to now hide it by saying it's not socialism. It is. When once the public realize they can vote themselves a free lunch, that's what happens. That's what's happening in Massachusetts. Let's say there's 5 people, and they're going to take a vote. And the first vote is whether or not 2 of those 5 people are going to support all 5. Oh, they lose 3-2. Now the vote is we're going to vote for if the 3 people are going to support all 5. If they're then of course now you're going to get the vote. If whether or not the 2 people are going to support the 3 people, they'll lose 3-2. So that's the type of vote what's at in Massachusetts, where enough people have realized they can vote themselves a free lunch. And it's going to happen here. Socialism, that's why socialism does not work. Eventually, there's two tax rates get $0. One is a tax rate of 0, and the other is 100%. If people are going to work and not be able to gain the fruits of their labor, why would they work? And we see examples of socialism throughout history. But here we hear about why it's such a great thing, because our kids aren't taught.
No, all you have to do is go to Venezuela and look how well it's working.
That's the most recent example. And I think I mentioned this in your show last time. Chile's economy in the turn of the century in 1900 was as powerful, as strong as the U.S. economy, if not even stronger at the time. And within 8 years of instituting socialist policies, they tanked, and they've never recovered. Their economy has never recovered.
Really?
Look back in the history. Follow that. There's great examples throughout history of that.
What was Chile's export, or what did they have for assets that made them so?
Well, they've got mountains. I'm not sure what their exported products are, but at the time, their GDP was almost equivalent to the U.S.'s.
Wow.
But the thing, and history is replete with these types of examples that happens, and you can see that and why USSR failed. And then they use sightings like Denmark or the Norway, other ones. They never become economic powerhouses. they never have and never will.
No.
It was capitalism that made America what it was, gave us the wealth that we have.
The minuscule amount of capitalism, or I shouldn't say minuscule, the capitalism they do have keeps them afloat. But the other thing...
Barely.
But
at a 60% tax rate, why would you want to start a business there? Why would you work there?
But the thing is one of the things Trump's, I think, done since he's taken office is those same countries are being defended. Their borders are being defended by us.
That's right, because we have the economic... We're strong enough to do that because of capitalism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you eliminate capitalism in the United States, then...
Well, I'm not all the way like Pat Buchanan, who wants total isolationism, nor am I like Ron Paul. We have a role, I think, to play in the U.S. But, however, part of that role also is to get other countries to pay up and ante up to pay their fair share as well.
He's the first president that's
ever do that.
Yeah.
That went to NATO and say, look, you promised 1% to 2% of your GDP and you didn't follow through. Now you're going to, because I mean what I say.
Right.
Thank God we get a president that does that, finally. We have someone that does that. How about and the other thing? Strategic patience with North Korea was criminal. That would be like telling Hitler, "Take over all of Europe. We'll wait till you get to our shores, and then we'll worry about you." Yeah. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
That's actually one of the things that actually really upset me. Was President Trump went to Vietnam to sit down with Kim, right? The Democrats deliberately used that same period of time to get, I forget what Trump's old lawyer, whatever his name is.
Well, at the time Buchanan was the chief of staff.
No, Trump's lawyer.
Oh, Trump's lawyer. Oh.
When Trump was sitting down with Kim in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
The Democrats, Pelosi.
Yes, because with a G, his attorney.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. But what the Democrats are sitting on, and open committees, basically letting him accuse Trump of being a liar and no good. And
talk about undermining our foreign relations. They couldn't have picked a worse time to be anti-American.
It was deliberate. Yeah. It was. As far as I'm concerned, the Democrats deliberately undermined the president while he was sitting down trying to negotiate peace in North Korea.
That's right. They did.
To me, that's treasonous.
Yes, it should be. But if you've got Trump derangement syndrome or you're a Trumpophobe, you don't see that. You don't see that.
I don't understand.
In fact, you're even willing to take the countries to have a detriment or have something go wrong just so you can say how bad Trump was. I mean, they're deranged. You know, we're talking about losing our country. I
know. I mean, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen is how hard Trump's worked to try to come up with some sort of peace in North Korea. I mean, the guy's obviously a despot and everything else, but if you can get him to put down his weapons...
You got to deal with him.
And you got to deal with him.
Yep.
Because, you remember Lee Quant.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Our friend Lee.
Honorable Lee Quant, yep.
He was on that DMZ. He wasn't in the war. My dad was in the war. Mm-hmm. But he was on that DMZ when the Democrats we were at peace with North Korea. This guy's dying on that DMZ all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the most dangerous place in the world.
Yeah.
At the time, you have to deal with these issues. You can't just let it sit. Strategic patience. All it did was give them time to develop the weapons that we gave them the money for.
Right.
We pay them for. I mean, what we're doing was clearly wrong. But it would take a president, someone who has real guts, to stand up and do that. And we finally got one.
Yeah.
And it did that. And it's the right man at the right time. And we're making some progress. I have a relative that was one of my kids' grand uncle was lost in Korea, never found again, too, hoping that one of his remains will be what's repatriated, too.
Right.
I mean, these things do mean we're making that progress that never existed before. You know, and another thing, too, is people complain about the president's style. That's his style. He's not perfect, but he tweets, and that's what he does, to talk directly. Now, if it wasn't for his tweets, he wouldn't have met with Kim Jong-un in North Korea on the way back. That was because of a tweet.
Well, one of the examples of how perverse the news media is when I got to get a new brain or quit getting sick.
Well, I understand. You've had
Epstein.
Months and months with Democrats on
yes,
here, both
it does a number on.
I can see the aura around you. Now you have to get that over time to get rid of
I
that.
just having trouble breathing, so oxygen isn't all getting up there. But Epstein gets arrested again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those people who aren't familiar, Jeff is it Jeff Epstein? Whatever his name is. Messed around was taking little girls, underage girls, to his island and messing around with them. Okay, and that happened, and he was arrested for that around 2008. It was right in the transition period between Bush and Obama.
Yep.
And they made some sweetheart deal with him, so that once they got convicted, so he was a registered sex offender, but he did 9 months in jail, but only at night. He had to sleep there, but he didn't have to be there during the day.
The rich privilege, yep.
All this other crap. And so those kids finally became women and pursued it, and finally they uncovered the sealed documents, which prevented them from actually seeking civil liability. And so now they actually have an avenue, and so he's rearrested. And the first thing the media does is they say Epstein, Trump's friend, Epstein, right? Is that how it was run, right?
It depends. Those and the other ones in Fox, you do it, but he's more closer to Clinton than he was to Trump.
The fact is, Epstein had been kicked out of Mar-a-Lago, many years ago, because Trump found out he was doing something with underage women in his hotel. He amongst all the people that Epstein's associated with.
I don't know the reason why he was. I mean, I've never seen anything.
And the reason the prosecutor down in Florida said that Trump was one of the few that actually cooperated with him to try to get Epstein.
Yep.
So he's working with the cops trying to get this guy because he realized what was going on.
Yep.
Unfriended him a long time ago.
Yep.
But that's not what the news media.
No, you got to fit into their narrative. Again, they're desperate to
It's
destroy.
got to fit in. And then the other day, I forget, it was Cuomo. Is that CNN or MSNBC? Chris
Cuomo's Chris Cuomo's. He's CNN.
CNN.
He should be on MSNBC. He's that far over.
Doesn't really make any difference. So he's on TV, quoted, I watched him. He said something about once it was realized and once the story evolved to the point where you realize he wasn't Trump's friend.
Yep.
Trump calls everybody his friends when they first meet him and stuff like that, and how great they are and all this.
Yep.
That's his way.
Yep.
So his statement that he's a great guy doesn't mean really anything because that's how Trump is.
Right.
So later on, as the story evolved and it became aware that Trump really had nothing to do with it or nothing to do with him, and that the real story was Epstein had a lot to do with President Clinton and his many trips to that island.
Yep.
And there's a lot of other Democrat donors that are probably going to get caught up in that.
Yep.
That's when Cuomo says, well, we don't want to get caught up in who may or may not have gone to this. It's like a completely different story. It flips it completely around once Democrats are going to start being incriminated by the story. They drop the story.
That's right. We heard part of that today. We didn't talk about what started the investigation or where FISA came from or the things they would not get into that.
No.
They won't talk about even what's more obstruction of justice, exercising your presidential powers or destroying physical evidence after they've been subpoenaed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, where is it, it's obvious. I think that the public is going to see in the election.
I hope so. I hope they're getting. I hope it's getting through. But like that's a good example. You know when they started the investigation into Hillary Clinton, she used bleach bit to erase hard drives. She had her staff take all their
cloth or something.
Yeah, she had her staff destroy all their BlackBerries with hammers.
Yep.
So she's being subpoenaed for information. She toasts as much information as she possibly can.
Right.
And nothing happens.
And we're going to wait till the president's unelected in order to get to go after him for obstruction.
Trump gave them like millions of pages of documentation.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, but he's the one obstructing justice.
Well,
it's everything's like completely flipped around.
It has been. I mean, that's been a lot of what you do in Washington. Whatever you do, you accuse the other place of doing it first, and that's how you make progress. And that's what they've been hanging their hat on. But some of the proposals now for them, and what I'm really worried is that we are getting destroyed from within. Can you imagine having the Tlaib or Omar say the things that they did, right after September 11th, how they'd be received if this was right after that, when we had our feelings of patriotism and flags were showing up along in the houses and people had them from their cars. Then have someone tell us what a lousy country we are, and now people just did something the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, just it's comments like that too, and why we're all stupid. Also, and why men are so wrong. Why we should be treated as second-class citizens because we're male.
Right.
I mean, you're.
I have some liberal friends on Facebook, and there is actually a large percentage of people. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know, 5% or something. A huge number of people, I should say, that believe that you cannot be racist against white men.
That you can't be racist against white men, right?
Yeah.
Right. In other words, we can't use any card. We're the only unprivileged.
Well, no. What they're saying is that if I hate somebody because they're black, I'm racist. But if somebody hates us because we're white men. That's not racist.
Right. Well, actually, if you hate anything at all, that has nothing to do with their color, ethnicity, or anything else, they can just say that it is. No, that's what we get. Everything is racist.
Everything's misogynistic, racist, and
I had a Trump bumper sticker in the back of my car, and last year at summertime we pull up by a stop sign, and a carload of teenage high school girls come up and say, "Oh, that's racist."
It just said Trump.
That says Trump is racist.
2016, I went across country on my motorcycle.
Yes.
With a Trump sticker on the back.
Yeah.
I survived.
Well, I told you, the only place I've ever gotten swung at was at Faneuil Hall. And,
hey, next
for
week,
having a Trump shirt.
Next week, I got my my mentor, Al Baldessaro, coming on.
I saw Al last night.
Yeah. I disagree with you on that, too. I'm supporting General Bolduc. I think he's awesome.
I'm fine. When I have my representative, which is at the time is Gene Shaheen, voting 100% of the time against the president, we're part of that obstruction of the country.
Yep. I know. It's about time. It's about time the people start getting represented instead of the parties.
Absolutely.
Hey, Sir Sapareto, thank you very much,
Gary,
young man.
And thank you for doing what you do up in Concord. And if you don't get reelected, your constituents, you do an excellent service for every constituent that you represent. All of them. You're one of the best legislators.
That don't agree with me on anything.
Well, you're one of the best legislators I ever worked with. You gave your word. Whenever you said something, you kept it. And up there, your word is your currency, and you're rich in that regard.
I get $10.
No, you're more than that.